So I'm at the Riverhead project. It's a new restaurant that apparently opened up in Riverhead, and they have a regular book project program, which is a literary program where they discuss, a particular highlighted book. And this month of July, they actually chose Long Island Noir as their book project. Yay! So I'm there representing Long Island Noir along with Ken Wishnia and J.Z. Holden, who are in the anthology as well. So we're supposed to, I believe, give a reading and have a little bit of a discussion afterwards. I want to check out the new restaurant. Supposedly it's very, very she looking for Riverhead. I grew up here my whole life. I never expected Riverhead to sort of bounce back the way it has, but the town is actually quite vibrant. Anyway, I'll be reading in a few minutes, and I'm going to try to see if I can get somebody to actually videotape me, which is probably not going to happen. So this might be the only video I have of this exchange. Take care. I'm so happy. I got to drink Ken's beer while I was waiting. And I also am happy because I always wanted to live Creedence Clearwater Revival's line. If I had $1 for every time I sung, every time I had to play while people sat there drunk. Right? To know what that feels like. It feels like it. I appreciate the invite here. It's hard when you're here representing a bunch of other writers, but the anthology is really worth its weight. There's such a diversity of stories in this anthology that it's not sort of one note, and that's what I loved about it. When I read it, was that people are coming from very different backgrounds, very different perspectives. We all sort of write dark, and it is noir, it is what it is. But I really enjoy the fact that I'm in an anthology with people who also write with great humor and write about people from different classes. So it's not just sort of a class warrior anthology, but my story is sort of class warrior-ish in that it's about a young man who has to go up to Doon Road in West Hampton and to rescue his brother who has a drug problem, and he's been lured to this house, this mansion on Doon Road he's been lured to Doon Road by this man who is posing to be a teenager on Facebook. So he gets somewhere there, and his older brother has to rescue him, and he gets stopped by a police officer. And the police officer is not too kind to him, sort of wants to question him and interrogate him because he sees on his license that he's from Manhattan Beach. And it's an experience that I'm sort of familiar with, having to do with coming from a community where I come from, and I was born and raised in Massachusetts, having to be told to turn around and go somewhere else, go back to where you belong. That's very odd, very disconcerting feeling to have to endure. And I thought that was sort of in my mind when I wrote this story. So I just wanted to read a couple sections of it, just to give you an idea of what it's about. If I didn't already. So this is going to start with the first instance of when he's sitting on the car and the police officer sort of makes him strip search. The police officer makes him strip down to nothing but his underwear and sit on his cold, it's the middle of January, and sit on the roof of the car. And while he checks out his information to find out if he has any prior arrests or anything. So he's thinking about growing up in the household with his younger brother, and how maybe things all went wrong. So he describes how his brother sort of drifts in and out of the house. Somehow a door would be locked, and Nick's mother would bang to be let in. She'd know, but not really know, what he was doing in there. She suspected often, but only caught him once. Jeffrey had found his old skates and his hockey stick one day, and rolled through the house laughing, out onto the porch, sloshed across the grass like wading through water, and moved into the street. Nearly hit by a car, he spun around, slap-shot a rock as it passed, ducked away from another car that honked. Then he skated off, crashed into the mailbox, and bounced the back of his head off the street. When his mother ran out to him, some blood had trickled from his ear. She was too nervous, sitting in the waiting room, to wonder about how they would pay for the bill for his stupidity. That was Nick's father's job. Staring up at the TV, as if he were paying attention to the woman on Maury, obsessed with knitting dog clothes. Her family crying and begging her to stop. He shook his head and stood up, muttering, "How does this happen?" "It happens," so said the doctor, "because acid makes it happen. He found it in his system. It was complicating his concussion. Nick's mother wanted to see him. His father was pacing the floor, repeating stories of wrapping the bleeding heads of drunken sailors back from shorely before they got shipped off to Vietnam. He hated the sight of bandages. He'd go in, he said, and make sure to only look at Jeffrey's feet. But the doctors wouldn't let either of them visit just yet. There were hurdles, they said. After that, Nick's mother put Jeffrey in all sorts of therapy sessions, which made the ghost in Nick's house seem like a ghost finding final peace. Drifting away, only the stories of him began to fill the rooms. How long he'd been using, how poorly he fit in at school, and another piece of puzzling information that had somehow been tucked away from his parents all these years. He had a vastly above average IQ, a superior genius rating, said one doctor, and he asked if they hadn't noticed this. They hadn't. Nick's father had actually suspected the opposite. The doctor asked if they'd ever witnessed Jeffrey pick up a violin or sit at the piano and start making sense of it, but they admitted that they never had instruments lying around the house. They weren't really music people, Nick's mother said, but that wasn't really what she meant. If you had instruments, you might have caught this. It's generally where extraordinary intelligence plays itself out, the doctor said. He shook their hands after their meeting. Nick could offer nothing to the investigation his parents launched after that to get to the bottom of who knew about Jeffrey's genius. The only thing Nick was able to contribute was an instance when they were in elementary school waiting at the bus stop and fat Danny Euclid was challenging other kids to fight. And Jeffrey told Nick that Danny was the only person he would never fight because he had no triangles. He was only circles. When they boarded the bus, Nick asked him what he meant. Jeffrey, second grade and laughing all the time, went into an explanation of a system of his own making, that people are made of shapes, mostly triangles, and you can beat people who have a lot of triangles because triangles are clumsy. He could see when people had triangles and when people didn't. In fact, Danny Euclid didn't. He was all circles, and circles could not be knocked over. No one's ever seen an upside-down circle. When Nick's mother finished listening to the story, she told Nick it sounded idiotic. Nick agreed, except, Nick said, squinting, I still remember that, because it's sort of true. I just want to read this last little section. He's told by the police officer to basically go back to Master P and wait it out. And hear, and to wait to hear word from them about what happened to his brother, if they find it all. So he's heading home and he has more time to think about his situation and about his brother. His body warmed as he blasted the heat. He watched the slick surface of the Twin Ponds glide by his passenger window, frozen under a foot of ice. Winter birds waddled with their young through paths cleared by skaters. Every star was visible. It made everything inside Nick seem immense. Earth, a place to be swallowed. Massive Beach, a labyrinth. Guilt, anger, love, unavoidable. Life, long. Stars, mighty things to hide between. Wilding birds in their roosts, sage in their simplicity. It stuck in his chest to think so, but just then he wanted Jeffrey to run and hide and disappear, even if it meant he would never see him again. Jeffrey wasn't part of the same world. Nick knew this now. He had great spirits that tried to ground him. He was bigger than all of them. Nick was mistaken to try and find him. For what? And who would he find? And do what? And how would he convince something that had sailed away so long ago to come back over the bridge? To his own destruction. If not, he told him so. He shook his head at how, just hours ago, he was praying to find him. A short while ago, he breathed relief that a cop might be able to find him. Now he couldn't imagine a worse fate. And wasn't that how the world he lived in really was? Always having to wait for a bad thing to happen so it makes way for something potentially good. He pulled into his driveway and idled there. The heat was still on. Light bled white and silver onto the frost-covered lawn where his mother pulled the front door open. He watched her peer through the reflection of their glass door, shield her eyes and press her face against the glass. She focused on Nick. The exhaust pulsed. Fat clouds of mist around his car. Nick watched her and then looked over at the empty passenger seat where he knew his mother was hoping to see her other son. He looked at the seat and half smiled at Jeffrey. Not there, but never before so close.